Hey everyone, Matt Donner here from Pyramind. I'm happy to host another episode of Producing Out Loud with my co-hosts Erin Barra Avery Berman.
Hey.
Hi everyone. So our subject today is effectively a very broad discussion on songwriting. And I think that there's going to be a healthy amount of conversation on what songwriting is, what it isn't, what it could be, and then comparing that to the thing that everyone talks about, which is producing. And which is, are they the same thing? Are they not the same thing? Do they have a relationship? How does it work? And of course, everybody is going to approach it differently. I'm real curious to hear what you guys have to say. Erin, you're sitting next to me. I'll let you go first. Maybe if you wouldn't mind, say a few words. Introduce yourself. Tell us what you know about songwriting.
My name's Erin Barra.
Everything?
I know everything about songwriting. No, I'm an associate professor at Berklee College of Music, and I'm actually housed inside of the Songwriting Department, but I manage all of our technology curriculum, so it really has a lot to do with how writers are engaging with technology in order to kind of control their content and see it to fruition, more or less. And I'm also an Ableton product specialist, and I teach a lot of DAW stuff to people who are writing music.
Got it.
So that's kind of
So you're bringing them in
wheelhouse.
from, if they're coming in from, say, the creative spectrum, and then you're bringing them into the digital spectrum, or at least the
Yes.
technological spectrum.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Avery, give everyone a little hello and a little background on you, if you would.
Yeah, so I'm Avery. I write and produce music. I engineer music. I have a history of being an artist on YouTube. Is kind of how I started with the electronic world. Then I kind of got into licensing, and today I write probably between 1 and 5 songs a week, and I'm licensing that music through the internet and through other means, and so I'm kind of songwriting and composing every single day, and that's like the super short story.
So awesome. 1 to 5 songs a week. Talk us through that. Does that mean song written, idea written, or written, composed, recorded, produced, mixed, mastered, released? Like, what's
When
the
I
finish
say
line?
it, I mean finished, so it's ready to be heard or used somewhere. So
Got it.
Composed, written, mastered, mixed, finished.
Got it. Straight across the finish line. I know as a teacher
Yes.
myself, the biggest thing that I hear from anyone in my class, and maybe you hear the same thing, well, actually, all 3 of us are teachers, so we probably all 3 hear this, but I struggle to finish songs. That's like number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, right behind it, is I need to learn how to mix and master. My answer to number 2 is usually go solve number 1. And when they solve number 1, the mixing tends to be like, it's kind of ready. And so tell me if you would agree with that statement that mixing is really not nearly as big as some people think if the writing is good. Maybe you guys both have a thought on that.
Yes, I'd love to. Yeah, I'll say a few words on that because I think this is a really important topic. I think that a lot of people kind of can get lost in the mixing stage and kind of gets really obsessive about it. And if I can tell a super short story, a few years ago in my own process, I became very, very obsessed with sound design. I kind of had there's this idea floating around that in order to be good or in order to be relevant or whatever, you need to have the sound, right? You got to have the sound or like no one cares or you're not making good music. And I became obsessed with that idea, and that destroyed my creativity because it taught me it let me not remember the beauty in every sound, right? Like every sound has a story to tell, and your job as a creator is to tell the story of that sound in your way. And I find that when we get obsessed with there being a right sound, you forget how beautiful every sound is, and that's a really destructive thing. So I think that it's important to understand mixing and mastering, and it's important to have that control, but you don't have to be amazing at it. You need to just understand how to write the music that you want to write and allow it to express itself and finish. If I can just get back to that, I guess.
Yeah.
I completely agree. The best way to get better at music is to finish music. And whether it's perfect or if it's just finished, if you finish, that's good.
Nice. Thoughts?
I mean, I find that a lot of times it depends on how people identify themselves or how they kind of fall on the spectrum. So a lot of writers, I think, are intimidated by mixing, or they feel like it's this whole paradigm which is somehow beyond them to some degree. But then I also find that a lot of times they make the best choices in terms of the arrangement or the sounds because they're, thinking more about what they're trying to communicate, and they tend to kind of serve the song better. And then their mixes are easier to do, because it was composed well. So I guess it's kind of cyclic. Like the writing has something to do with the mixing, and like you can't mix unless you're done writing it in the first place. Like you can kind of jump around from lily pad to lily pad, but I think they're all very interconnected at some juncture, like whether or not you're the person doing it or if somebody else is doing it.
Right.
So
is it fair to say that you see more, for lack of a better term, say singer-songwriters, people who are approaching production from an instrumental position?
I'd say probably half of them have aspirations of being artists. They're all instrumentalists, just because at Berklee everybody has to do a couple years of instrumental studies. So they're definitely all, by the time we're done with them, they're world-class musicians. They've taken lots of music education. But in terms of the students that I encounter, like maybe half of them want to be artists and the other half of them want to be writer-producers.
Got it. And Avery, in your lessons, do you run into people on that spectrum as well? What are some of the folks that you're talking to?
A lot of artists, people want to express themselves and just learn how music works, how they can touch on those emotions in the way that they want to, how to put chord progressions. But some people who want to do it professionally, either writing, composing, or mixing and mastering. So yeah, across the board for whatever your interests are.
Awesome. I know for me, and here at Pyramind, I always describe it as, like you say, it's on a spectrum, different spectrum, just for the record. But there's a range, and you've got folks over here, and we're in San Francisco, so we see people who are building websites of full-blown hardcore Ruby coders or coding of whatever sort, and they think electronic music is the coolest thing ever, and they want to come into it from the technical standpoint. And sure, they know software and they know code. Surely they can figure this out. Mm-hmm. And then folks on this side who, I've been playing piano or violin or guitar for 2,500 years, and I want to get into that whole Pro Tools thing. And so I see, at least in my class, I see both ends of the spectrum, and then I see the folks in the middle who are like, no idea what I'm doing. Never done this before. First time, first day, first week. And I guess the thing that I always end up saying to them is you need to be able to walk across both sides. I mean, you need to be able to understand what technology does, and you need to know what you're trying to say. And for the folks in the middle, it's the hardest because they're trying to understand two disciplines at the same time. And I've built a program that you can literally just sort of walk through each of the processes, and as far as how do you choose to make chords or pick keys, and does it matter, and what are the moods that happen there. And I think the biggest struggle that I run into is getting people to accept that the decisions that they make are probably working better than they think they are. Mm-hmm. Because I think what you had said was, well, you need the mixing, and you need to do the arranging, and they're all interconnected. But I guess if you're coming from a framework of you've never made any decision like this ever before, how on earth do you even know what's a good decision?
And that's a really important thing, I think, that you just said too. And one thing that I like to say on kind of that same vein is, as musicians, right, we don't necessarily have a shortage of ideas often. What we have is a problem in deciding which idea is the right idea, right? And it's about minimizing that down. And if I may kind of bridge, Erin, earlier you mentioned how like kind of the decisions early on and kind of make it all easier. Like it makes the mixing easier and the production easier when you kind of make your decisions about the sounds and kind of advance was kind of what I was pulling from what you were saying before. And I kind of wanted to riff on that real quick just because I think that's super important about beginning from some kind of intention, right? Because I think that one of the things that a lot of people struggle with in this kind of vein is you sit down and you're like, well, I'm going to make some music now. And you start making something. And, maybe it's coming cool, and then maybe you're just like, well, I don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden you kind of lose the vibe, and you walk away, you come back, and then you're lost. And what I like to say is, if you didn't know what you were doing when you sat down, don't be surprised when it doesn't come out, right? So like you need to go in with an idea of what are you doing in that session? And what are you doing in that song? And why are you writing that song? Now, sometimes you can be super open about it, right? Like you can be like, oh, I'm sitting down right now to practice chords. That's my intention. And I'm going to practice voicings and voice leading. And I'm going to see what these chords express. And that's what I'm doing. And so it's okay if I don't write a full song. And sometimes you'll sit down and say, I'm going to write a song today. And it's going to feel happy. right? So like kind of making that intention first goes a super long way to finishing a product you're happy with, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I have like a very specific ethos about this, and it's actually in parallel with what Avery's saying, that I think it really comes down to like why you're doing something. And I think from a songwriting perspective, or even if it's just an instrumental kind of approach, there has to be like a reason. So if it's, I'm writing a song about Western civilization crumbling around us, then there's an intention, and then actually that informs all of your decision making. And
yeah, we could make some crazy kick drums with that, some destruction.
Well, we have this word that we use a lot at Berklee called prosody, which basically prosody.
Prosody.
Prosody, and
Prosody.
it comes from it's like the word prose, right? Anyways, I can dictate this a little better in musical terms, but let's say if you're writing a song about love, right, then you choose all the musical tools to support that concept. So maybe you use a rhythmic figure of a heartbeat, or you use chords that have a lot of kind of urgency to them, or tension and release, right? Like melodically, lyrically, harmonically, rhythmically, everything kind of all ties back to what it is you're saying. And that, that intention or that why, if you set that in the beginning, then finishing is kind of a foregone conclusion. It's just the steps you take to get there, and you say, well, I choose these tools because I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm trying to say. And that's actually something that I think that takes a long time to develop as a young writer and a producer. And I also agree with Avery that if you're learning, if that's the intention of just sitting down and like, I'm going to develop my dubstep skills today, or I'm going to develop my lyric writing skills, then maybe you don't have to have the same outcome, as long as you know why you're doing it, and then you get out of it what you wanted.
Right. Well, I guess I would pose the question to both of you, that if you were sitting down on day one, session one, with student one who's also having day one, where do you start them? Like, where would you recommend that they start? I don't play piano. It's my first day with Ableton. I've hired you guys to coach me, maybe through the mentorship network or maybe through Berklee. And hey, I want to make music. I really love music. I love it. I heard it was really cool. I see the super guys on the stage and it's all fancy and they're making billions. So can you get me there? You can get me there quick, right? It's fast and easy, right? $200
So
with Logic.
fast,
That's
so
all we
easy,
need, right?
man.
$200, right? Get me going. Or I guess Ableton Suite, right? $699, $899, EDU discounts. That's all you need, right? That and a push. So where do you start? Where do you start me? I guess Erin, I'll start with you.
Okay. I think it totally depends, again, like the intention of that student, right? Like I've worked with a lot of kids, and I think the most important thing is to kind of like get to the root of how somebody's going to kind of like hitch their wagon to the idea, right? So for kids, if it's day one, then the priority is have fun. Okay. Right? You sit down with them and you're like, look at all these buttons, press all of them. Like, isn't this such a good time? And then that sort of like igniting of the fire then leads to, being on billboards later, right? So the first step is really
You've got 2 hours. I mean, you can get me there.
You got to get somebody excited. And so if it's an adult, and they're doing it because they want to feel like they're expressing themselves, then you kind of have to like hone in on what's that thing that person really wants right now? What's the first thing I can do to make them excited and continue to learn, not only in a classroom, but on their own? And if you can actually provide that to somebody, then it doesn't matter how long they're with you, or how much money they invest in it. It's kind of like a lifelong thing. So that's what I try to do first day, is to like give people, I try to ignite the flame within.
So question, if I heard you right, you're going to go, whatever it is, you're going right to the heart of the intention of the learner, and you're just, wherever that is, and that's where you start.
Just show them the door, and then if they see it, they walk through. And, I think that's probably the best thing you could do for any learner, right. Whether it's technical or creative, it's just inspire them to be a learner in
right.
a lot of ways.
Right. I mean, we've been doing this a long time. I've certainly been doing this a long time. I still learn stuff every day. Avery, talk to me about that. Student one, day one.
So, Erin, first, I really like what you said also about the young students and children. Whenever someone young and kind of comes in, I always kind of get a new sense of wonderment about how they see music. Just because sometimes when you've been doing it, you do it every day, you're doing it for so long, it becomes just something you kind of understand this degree, even though we're always learning. But when you see someone come in and they just play that, that press that one key on like some kind of cool sound, they're just blown away by it. That to me also is like, I'm learning from just watching that, and like that opportunity is awesome. So I'm really glad that you brought that up to just kind of see through their eyes. And I completely agree with you about finding the intention of the student, right? There's no one way to make music, right? Like the music that you have is going to be different than my music. I can't tell you how to write your music, but I can help guide you to learn what you want to learn or what you need to learn to make the music that you would like to be making, right? So I think one of the first things that I like to talk about with students, especially non-technical students, is I don't want to talk about theory at all, because theory is a tool, right? And we don't have to do that tool first, especially if it's confusing. I would much rather ask, what do you like to listen to? What kind of sounds do you like? Open your mouth. What comes out of your mouth when you open it? What kind of humming sounds come out? Like what is coming out of you already organically? And then let's kind of make some rhythms, and let's find what you are and what you're doing. So just what you're saying, Erin, about just techniques to find the intention of that student, even if they're not sure what it is, to kind of help them draw it out so that we can kind of create a path for, okay, this is the kind of stuff that we should focus on so you can kind of get to where you want to go, kind of ideas. What do you think about that?
I mean, I also think one of the main issues that most educators encounter when they first start engaging with technology, and whether it's songwriting or producing or whatever, is that they focus on the tech and less on the music. So I think that the very first thing I would do with a student is make them make music. Right? Like just be making music within 5-10 minutes. Like let's not even talk about how this thing works. Let's just start using it. Right. And I think that is a really important first step, because people kind of feel like there's some sort of barrier between them and their goal. And so if you can show them that you just start making music, it seems a little less daunting and tedious in a way, or it just you're coming from a musical place as opposed to a technical place, and like that's the end goal, right? Everyone wants to make music.
Yeah, I mean, I see and agree with both of you when you have a student who is coming at this from an emotional place. But when they're coming at this from a non-emotional place, it's a completely different ball of wax. Again, say the student who, first day, first note, never touched a piano, never did anything. Let me back up. A lot of the people that I have worked with, particularly at the very beginning, fun is a part of this, emotion is a part of this, but there's also something of a glitz and glamour factor. And I think that the more that somebody thinks in genre terms, the more likely it is that it's the technology that's actually drawing them in. As opposed to, I don't want to write a love song, I want to make deep house. That's what I listen to, that's all I listen to, that's all I do. Show me how to make deep house. And then it becomes a matter of, and what they want and expect is a series of steps, literally a laundry list. Just do these numbers in this order, and you will be a deep house producer. And no matter how many times I've had conversations about story or mood or key or emotion or fun or variation, it just, does it sound like deep house? And I'm like, oh, okay, you really got yourself in a little box there, don't you? And I don't know if you guys find this, but in that situation, you have two choices. One is to bail on the student and say, I can't help you because you're not speaking my language. And two is you have to jump into their box with them and try to understand what it is that deep house is or does, and then try to understand the sounds and the progressions and the flow, and then get them to a place where they know how to even do step one. And I think we would probably all agree step one is 120 BPM, 4-on-floor kick drum.
There you go.
Right, every single time, yeah.
Boom, go.
It's like type in the word house in your preset browser, and then that's
drag
it.
every
You're
loop
done.
you can.
You're done.
But to be real, I think that's a good point that you bring up, and I don't think there's anything wrong if somebody just, and I know that you don't either, if someone does want to just begin at this place, to begin in this box, if you will. And it's a great stepping stone to jump off of if you begin there, at least. But indeed, it would be to develop a curriculum, I suppose, around that idea of let's listen to your favorite songs and let's recreate them together. Let's learn exactly how they put this together. What chords are they using and why did they pick those chords, right? We can kind of zoom into that emotion a little bit by being like, well, those chords were kind of sad, or they created this kind of mysterious feeling, right? And look at how they did those voicings. Look how spread out those notes are. Isn't that interesting how they did that? Look at the rhythm in that kick drum. I wonder why all of these songs have the kick drum like that and the snare like that. What kind of emotion is this bringing here, and why are they doing that? And how can we do that so you can copy it, but in your own way? So I guess it's about taking the song, dissecting it together, and learning what makes this.
I think there's this whole new type of learner that you actually just kind of profiled in a way. There's this really interesting place. It's like a newer, I wouldn't even call it a school because that's not what it is. It's called the Foxgrove, and it's in Manhattan. And it's they don't offer courses. It's just this sort of like almost like a Groupon experience. You know, when like you go painting with your friends, they're like, oh, it's a Groupon, and like we're having drinks and we're learning how to paint the Monet, right? Or the whatever. So it's similar where like people who are just like, I want to be a DJ too, you know, and then they can go and take like a 2-hour class about how to DJ with Serato, right? And then maybe they like get a gig or like they DJ their friend's party or something. And it's similar where it's like, I think there is this whole new group of people that they want to engage with the technology and they want to be creative, and maybe it's in a very specific way. But the technology actually does allow them to do that.
Sure.
You know, you can, if you want to be a deep house producer, and that's it, and that's just kind of a one-off tangential part of your human experience, then that's a thing you can do these days. Sure. You know, and I think it's kind of incredible, but it does kind of challenge us as educators or people who try to pass a lot of information on. It's like, that's a different type of learner, and I honestly don't know what the right way to do that is.
Yeah, it's tough. I've been calling them the micro learner. I just need to know this little piece of information, or I just need to know this little nugget of whatever it is. And then that's what they want, and they go get it, and then take it home. And some of them, great. That's all they want. That's all they need. Perfectly happy. If they want something else, they'll go back to some other source and go find the next nugget. Some of them walk in our doors, maybe you as well, and they see the other side. They see, hey, that was great. That was fun. And I only did that in a couple hours. Surely I can go through a program in, say, 2 days? Mm-hmm. If that was 2 hours, I mean, what can I get for 2 days? And then at the other end of it, they're like, I'm going to be a professional, right? And they're just going to wear a cape that says Super Pro DJ Producer Guy or gal, whatever.
Well, I guess one of the big things is the difference between being able to write a song, a very specific kind of song, and having the control to craft anything that you would like, right? And I think that that's kind of the big thing that we're kind of talking about here, is
Sure.
the understanding of how to compose or create from emotion or from any source, and not just being stuck in like, that's the only sound and thing that I can do.
So let me ask you each a question. Define for me, if you could, the difference between a song and a track.
So for me, and I know that this might not be like kind of true anymore, but for me, when I hear the word song, I think of the original kind of definition, which was like a lyrical piece of music. But today, I think song and track, they're kind of, which one is which, are kind of like two in the same coin these days for how people are using them. But what do you think about that?
Well, I'll let you answer first.
I mean, I guess that in one way you could see the track as like the instrumental
right. I think that's
stereo component that a writer then would write melody and lyrics on top of. But that'd be like a top lining sort of a paradigm. And that truthfully, that is the way that the majority of mainstream like top 40 music does get composed and put together these days. But yeah, I agree. There's not some huge demarcation or line anymore. It's blurry.
So I think you're both referring more to a technical standpoint where like, here's the 2-track piece of audio, and then boom, we fly in our pro singer and he or she does the top line or sings the melody on top, and then balance it, mix it, throw it out there, is done. And I guess in my head, I hear it in that way. Also another way where the track is a piece of music that may or may not have actually an emotional intention from the get-go. It's just something that I made. It's just a track. It's just a piece of music. Whereas, say, a song, I think sets out to tell a story. And I'm sure you've both heard, I know I have, lots of music, totally successful music, but doesn't necessarily tell a story. And so I guess in my head, I delineate that way. But I was just kind of fishing to see if you had any strong thoughts on whether or not those two things were a thing.
That's an interesting point, I think, that you said there. About kind of the intention behind it. And I certainly don't want to say anything that would alienate anybody, and I certainly have the utmost respect for all kinds of music, no matter what you're making. But I guess under those kind of terms, if I was to think about kind of the current pop song, right, in terms of, as you had said, Erin, like it's usually a very alienated process. Like someone has made a beat and a chord progression and some cool sound design, and then someone else has written the lyrics. Or maybe that same person did, but in that the process, like, they're kind of just like, well, here's this thing, and now here's this thing, and now they're together. Instead of necessarily an intention from the full way that both of these pieces are going to tell the story together. It's like, here's something that's cool, and here's something that's cool. So that was a track, And I think maybe that's kind of what we're talking about.
I mean, I think that even if it's just an instrumental track or a beat or something, there's still feelings in it.
And sure. I'm not discounting it.
It's not like the writer or the top liner would receive a track and then a good writer would then take the like kind of emotional context of what the chords are saying, what the rhythms are saying, what the tempo is saying, and then choose what the concept or the overarching story is based upon that thing. So I think that, I think it would be impossible to make a beat that had zero emotion to it, right? I mean, maybe you can.
No.
Let's give it a try. Huh?
No, I'm not saying I can. I'm just suggesting that it has been done.
That's a challenge right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess getting back to the songwriting thing, and just to wrap that up, what you're saying is that if we're in a paradigm where producers X and Y are making the music and then singer Z is coming in after the fact, that she or he, the singer, would take their musical context from the music and then would write lyrics that are intentionally married to that after the fact.
Melody and lyrics.
And
it's probably a writer. It's probably not a singer.
You wouldn't think that the singer comes in with their own melodic ideas or their own lyrical ideas?
If you're talking top 40, I'd say very, very... not very often are the artists highly engaged in the writing process. No.
Okay. Would you agree with that?
It's hard to agree or disagree with that just because, that's such a personal process and there are certain veins in the industry, like you have said, where that may be more common. But I guess, it depends on where you are and what you're doing,
So I guess we're talking about the separation. We're talking about what a song is. And song, if we're all in agreement, then a song is the marriage of the musical ideas and execution to the lyrical, melodic ideas and execution. And then we're talking about process, whether those are separated processes, whether 2 people involved or 3 people involved or 3 groups of people involved, or whether it's a single person. So what if I throw the question out there in reverse, which would be the concept of the remix, where the vocal is actually, and the melody is actually the singular starting point. And then now you as the quote, songwriter or remixer, you have the reverse process to deal with. What would you suggest as a starting point? Because that's something that tons of producers are doing. I mean, they're trying to establish themselves. They're trying to get a fan base. They're trying to get people to listen to their music because they can grab vocals, which are really personal and really difficult to execute well. Here's this a cappella online. I'm just going to grab it, make a track behind it. I mean, where would you say, from a songwriting coach's perspective, I downloaded this thing. I want to make a remix. Now what?
Okay.
In terms of what to begin with?
Yeah. Like, where do you start? Starting points.
I mean, I feel like...
You want to go first, Erin? Okay.
Every remix, if it needs to be recoloring the original intention, right? Like, if you have a song... I mean, there was this album, like, when Pop Goes Punk or something. I must have been in junior high at the time.
Right? I remember that.
Yeah, and it was all of these like really cheesy pop songs, but then kind of through the lens of this like kind of aggro, emo, punk movement, right? And it totally gave the song this new light or this new lens to look through it, and it gave it a new emotional context, and it said something that the original didn't, right? So same lyrics, same vocal, but like a completely different way of looking at it. And so, I mean, I find that the remixes that I'm drawn to are showing me something more in that lyric that I didn't know in the first place, whether that's like tempo, whether that's key, whether that's genre. I think that's really up to the remix artist. But again, it's like always back to that intention. And what I hate is when I see somebody basically just reinterpret the exact same thing the exact same way. You know?
So it's just a straight up cover at that point.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a house version of this deep house song or something. You know,
Right.
It's like
So you look for variation. You're looking for a full reinterpretation.
recoloring of the concept.
Got
Yeah.
it.
What does it mean to you?
Right. Avery?
Yeah, I would agree that my personal preference is that as well. That I would much rather see you take that original part, right? I think that remixes are great to practice with and to write with, even just for the practice sake, because you have this great top line, and you get to say, what am I going to do with this? So I completely agree that I think if you're able to interpret it in your own way, bring your flavor to it, your style to it, whether that's similar or completely different, that's what you should be doing. To kind of nod at what you had said, it is kind of an irksome thing to hear when there's like the hot new remix or whatever, and it's like the same track, but the only difference is now the kick is 4 on the floor, right? And it's like, oh, what a remix, right?
Yeah.
Really pushed the boundaries on that one.
Yeah.
Are either of you familiar with, well, first of all, Herbie Hancock? I imagine you must be.
Oh, yeah.
And he's had a series of albums, not terribly recently necessarily, but something called The New Standard. So Herbie Hancock, super jazz keyboard player, for those who don't know. Look up a record called The New Standard, and he took pop songs over the last 2 or 3 decades and redid them with a jazz, sometimes 5 group, sometimes 6 group. Just unbelievable. And I play, take a song, Don Henley's New York Minute, which is a pretty splashy snare, cheeseball 80s track with some big bright keyboards. And in and of itself, it's hard to listen to in today's production environment. But then I play about 2 minutes of that song, and I play 2 minutes of Herbie Hancock, and I ask them to raise your hand when you hear the original song. And 8 times out of 10, we go through the entire song, and not a single hand comes up. And I guess the question there is, if we're talking about things like chord progressions or mood or color or intention or melody, for a person who really can't hear, the original one song in another, or a recolorization of a remix or something like that, how do you help somebody hear that? If they're listening to sounds, and I know, Avery, you got some conversations to be had about sound design. If they're listening to sounds and they're not listening to mood, how do you introduce them to the concept of mood? Now, how can I recolorize my remix if I don't even understand the color of the first one? I guess that's the question I'm posing to you as educators.
I mean, I think that analysis or critical listening is different for everybody, right? Like, I've worked with engineers where we've worked on an entire song, and then I'll suggest something that they should do in the mix that would kind of spotlight a lyric, and they'll say, oh, I didn't listen to the lyrics, 10 hours in. And so I think that everybody listens differently.
Sure.
And so if somebody's in front of you asking you to open their ears, and you have to kind of pose questions to them like, what do you think this song is about? Or how do you think the writer chose those chords? Or why? Why do you think they did that? And so if you can challenge the way somebody's listening or help them to kind of open their ears, critical listening is a skill that most people don't utilize.
Or have.
Yeah, but you can learn it. If you can identify, like, I have the exact opposite problem with writers. I'll be like, okay, well, this is very bright, isn't it? To kind of to segue even into the sound design component of it, like, what does this, how do you explain, talk to me about how would you describe that sound? It's like, okay, well, I don't even have that vocabulary. And it's just the opposite for people who want to enter that other side of the listening spectrum. It's like, don't listen to the sounds, listen to the emotion. Like, what is it saying? And then once you kind of let somebody click in their brain, they're like, oh, shit, I wasn't even listening to that. That's the first step, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's kind of a tricky one. And I really like your answer to that, just because, if in my mind, what I'm thinking of is, if the individual doesn't really care, they're never going to learn no matter what you show them. But if there's somebody that's trying to learn how to do that, and they're just learning how to bridge, and how do I listen to this in a critical way, or how do I pull from this, I think you actually said a really nice thing, Erin, about bringing it to zooming out. Like, we don't have to even talk about the chords. We'll just talk about, what does this feel like? What do you like about this song? Let's first begin. What do you like about that? Let's write that down. Then let's talk about those things and how they work. So I guess just one step at a time of making that bridge. One of my favorite things to listen for personally is the bass. And I always like introducing students by saying, whenever you want to begin your critical listening, especially to find chord progressions or the foundation, listening to the bass is one of the easiest ways to do it, because that bass will tell you so much of the story.
Yeah. Unless they're inverting the bass all over the place, in which case it's super easy to get lost. So I have my students go through a process where it's not so much a theory process, but it's definitely a critical listening process. And the word you use that I think is most important is vocabulary. Quick side story: I used to do live sound, and I put a sound system in a church here in San Francisco, and one of the congregants said, "We really love the sound of the system. It used to sound very brown." It's like, okay, I'm just going to let that one happen. And it was an early lesson for me that people don't hear the same way, which is huge. People don't even necessarily listen with their ears. Or some people listen with their ears, probably your engineer buddy who wasn't listening to the lyrics. He was listening with his ears to the frequencies and to dynamics, and may not have even been paying attention to the song. Other people only listen to the lyrics. Some people never listen to the lyrics. Some people only listen to the bass or the sound design or the genre. They have no idea what mood is. And so I have all of my students go through a process where I play one note, two notes, and then three notes together. And I just play them, and I let them hang in the air. And they have 5 seconds, no more, 5 seconds to write down the very first word that pops into their head, or group of words. The point being, it's instinctive, it's not conscious, it's non-judgmental. And I say, the first thing that comes into your head is purple unicorns, and then you say, "Oh, that's stupid, let me go find something else," you write down purple unicorns. That's the whole purpose. And eventually what ends up happening is they develop their own language to describe what it is that they think they hear in notes or in harmony or dissonance. And you get some great results, like that time I threw my sister down the stairs and she broke her arm and I felt miserable for a month. It's like,
that's awesome.
Wow, you got all of that out of 2 notes. I was like, okay, happened to have been a diminished fifth. Not surprising. But yeah, it's the thing about vocabulary. It's my biggest struggle, I think, if I have one as a teacher. It's helping people work through their personal challenges. Some of them are very deep and personal to them as to why they can or cannot hear some of these other things that everybody else is hearing. It's a big challenge. Now, switching gears real quick, because I think we got to wrap it up soon. Avery, you had said that there was something you wanted to say about producing versus songwriting versus sound design.
Well, I guess it's just an important discussion. I think we've kind of touched on it here and there. But I guess one of the things is, in today's world, there's such an emphasis on sound design as being like the only thing that matters. And I guess I just wanted to make this clear that it is certainly not the only thing that matters. It is incredibly important, just like every other part of making music is important. But it is not the only thing that matters. And I think, as I mentioned before, if you become too deep in that, you can lose yourself and your own voice. We don't listen to music like other people listen to music, right? I don't think any two people necessarily listen the same exact way. But especially you, creator, whatever you're making, you are going to listen to your own music so much differently than every other person ever. And I think one of the things, kind of going back to the beginning, why finishing is so important is because you finish songs by learning to finish songs and by getting out of your head about it and realizing it's okay if I didn't make the #1 hit in the world, right? Like, you don't have to do that every time. And sometimes your song can be 30 seconds long even, right? Just make it express something clearly and that you want to express, and be okay with getting out of your own kind of way. And if the sound isn't perfect, that's okay. Do it better next time. Just finish the song, right? Like, just don't. It's just about that obsessive nature that we kind of get in our own heads, and we hear all the things in the back of our mind that isn't good enough. And it can be a challenge, but that it's okay to let that go. You can still be a great creator and let it go. It's okay.
So you're going to dovetail into what I'll pose as perhaps our concluding question, and maybe you just answered it, which is, if you had a piece of advice to help somebody finish songs, what would it be? And
Well, if I may, I think what might be valuable is if maybe Erin and I each talked about our process of writing, just so maybe to say like how we approach a song project, just so maybe might help somebody for what they're approaching.
sure, go for it.
Okay, so for me, what I personally do is I produce in waves, I like to call them. So like I'll sit down and I'll have the intention right first. If I'm writing like a song, I'm going to write a song today. And I will specifically write as much of it as I can out. I'm going to get the arrangement, I'm going to get, the parts, I'm going to get the writing, I'm going to get the basic sounds. I'm going to try and make as quick decisions as I can to get as far as I can. And as soon as I feel that energy kind of not coming, or I start to like make these weird changes and I start to doubt it or something, I walk away. And then I come back later, and then I feel that, and then there's wave 2. And then I begin to make my edits to that. And I try not to get too crazy, right? I don't want too many things. I want my song to be focused generally. So I be very specific about being okay with adding things, but just seeing what comes out and allowing the process to just kind of come there and come back and come there. And sometimes a wave will, sometimes I'll finish a song in 2 waves. Sometimes I'll finish a song in 20 waves. But I think the idea is to kind of sit down, write, and get out as much as you can so that you have something to work with so that you don't get stuck in the loop. Because I think that so many producers get stuck in the loop. Like, oh, I spent 6 hours or 8 hours working on this loop. This is the coolest loop ever. But you're never going to finish that loop because you got stuck there. So you got to move on and be okay with that. And then you can fill in those blanks and go in for your waves. And so personally, that's kind of how I approach it and something that works for me. And I thought maybe that might be helpful for somebody
Excellent.
to hear.
No, it's terrific. And I'll have something to share in a moment.
Well, before I share my own process, there's a really great book that I would recommend.
Okay.
I did not write it. It's called 74 Creative Strategies for Electronic Musicians by Dennis DeSantis.
Yes, the Ableton.
I've read that one.
Yeah, so it has, it's segmented into 3 places, like problems you encounter when you're starting, problems you encounter mid-process, and then also, the finishing issues. And I think that everybody's problem is a little bit different. Sure. And it's kind of like a tangential oblique strategies sort of thing. But it's a great book, and it's like $10 on the
It's on the
apps.
Ableton website, right?
I think the hard copy is like 30 something, but
Okay.
you can get the ebook for like literally $10, and it's one of the most helpful pieces of literature that I've encountered about this particular topic.
Excellent.
But for my process, it's all about what I'd kind of mentioned earlier, which is like intention and prosody. So whether I'm writing or whether I'm producing, I think the job of either of those people, and sometimes they're the same person, is to best serve the song, right? So I need to know why I'm doing something before I do it, and there has to be a reason. Otherwise, I'm always 100% displeased with the product. So I just don't do it anymore unless I know why. Right. So, whether it's in a professional capacity or a personal capacity, I just have to know that. And then every single decision I make, like the chords I'm using, the words I'm setting, the melodies I'm writing, every single part of that process is informed because of why. And then no matter where I am in the process, whether it's producing or writing or mixing or sound design, I just kind of come from that place. And then it doesn't, I don't find myself being lost ever. It's just like whatever point of the process I might be in. And I do take breaks also, maybe like I'll definitely step away and come back. I think that's really valid, useful advice as well.
Do you title your songs early? Because you're coming at this from very much a sort of holistic story. It sounds like, at least to me, the general concept, like the big box of creativity, you've already got that defined. As you get into it, what you're trying to make. And I'm just curious, where in that process do you find yourself maybe settling on titles?
With a title?
Yeah. It's a thing I have.
It depends if it's my piece or if it's somebody else's.
Well, let's say yours, where you have 100% control.
Optimally, the concept definitely ties into the title. So I might not have like an exact set of words, but I'll have like a very, close approximation to what it might be called. Yeah.
So the reason I bring it up is because, I don't know, 9 out of 10 times when I'm looking at a student's work and they're finishing the arrangement and preparing for the mix, meaning song's pretty much done. And at some point or another, you've got to figure out what the hell this thing is that you've made. I see across the top Producing and Arranging 101 version 6 or Untitled -2 -4 and then the date. I'm like, so what are you making? And they're like, yeah, I don't know. I said, okay, you got 10 seconds to come up with a title. And I do that on the spot thing where immediately, the consciousness is on guard and ideas start immediately bubbling up to the surface. And the second they grab a title and the second they title it and then they save it, the very next day we open it up, the title stays and they always feel much better about the piece, even though not a damn thing has changed from Monday to say Wednesday, except the title.
Yeah.
Well, that and 2 days have gone by, right? Because I think I'm hearing from both of you that a certain separation is important in the process. And I guess if I'll share a process for me as well. I don't know necessarily whether or not I want students to pre-dictate what they're going to make or not make in the moment. I 100% agree. The more clear you are going in, the more clear you are coming out. But at some point or another, it's okay to walk in and say, no idea what I'm doing. But at that moment where the idea crystallizes, for me, that's the big light bulb. Title your song right then, because it'll remove a bunch of noise. It'll remove a bunch of decision noise. And Avery, I 100% agree with you. When you're writing, when you are creating, that's what you do. And I say give yourself 5 minutes and no more to explore a quick EQ idea, a quick delay idea, a quick reverb idea, to set up a quick send and return, to set up your sidechain compression. 5 minutes. Because anything more than that, and all of a sudden, you're leaving your right brain and you're sliding into your left brain. And every time you go back and forth between the creative center and the analytical center, you lose efficiency. It exhausts you mentally. And the more exhausted you are, the less creative you are. So yeah, I say you write as much as you can, hit the brakes, go get a sandwich, come back, organize what you've got, assess what you've got, recreate more stuff, go get more stuff, reorganize it, and at some point or another you say, I have no more statements to make. It's laying out perfectly. It's playing the way it should. The arrangement is flowing. The curve of the emotions in the song are behaving mostly properly. And in that moment, render everything to audio, start a brand new session, and then mix. And I'm a big fan of that, even though half of my teachers yell at me for that. That's not the way we do it now, Matt. I was like, well, guess what? You've been writing and producing and mixing and organizing the whole damn time, bouncing back and forth and back and forth. Try it my way one time and let's see if you don't come out with a clearer idea. But in any case, that's our process.
Yeah, and about the name, because you had mentioned that, I agree with you about the naming thing. I tried both of those, right? When I first started, I named things like, Picnic 3 or, Fire Ants, right? Like name it like whatever it is. But like every single time, those are the songs I'm like, oh man, that song really feels
love
cool.
Fire Ants. I can't wait.
Right, exactly. And then I went through a phase where I was kind of like really just writing a lot and I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to call it. This is March 15th fun. And, I come back to it and like, that's okay. But I 100% agree and have felt that same thing where the very first thing I like to do, I get in, I name it, and I name it whatever the hell it is that it gets named.
That's
whatever.
Right. Has to be
instinctive. I
instinctive.
Always change the name at the end.
Yeah, it has
but
to
I
be
need
instinctive.
something to feel from,
I think if the title isn't tied to some gut reaction within yourself, it's just as meaningless as, March 24th, 2017 or whatever. I don't even know what today's date is. Today the 18th?
I don't know.
We have no idea. We do music. We don't do dates. We don't know.
Is it Tuesday?
Sure. It's a Tuesday. It's a Monday. Says so right there on the screen. So, guys, thank you. I really appreciate both of you being here. I know it's of great value, I hope, to the audience. And to the audience, I will say two things. This is called Producing Out Loud. You can email us if you want to hear people talking about various subjects at producingoutloud@pyramind.com. And for those of you who want to learn more, by all means, take a look at our three respective organizations, see if there's something for you there. We obviously online classes, ground campus classes in Boston, online ground campus classes out of San Francisco, remote training out of upstate New York, if you happen to be in upstate New York or not. You can work with Avery. You can also find Avery and myself on the Pyramind Mentorship Network. Any last thoughts for the audience before we break? I guess I had posed the question before, if you had one quick nugget of glory to help out a would-be producer, someone who says, I can't finish songs. One nugget of glory, get me across the finish line. What would it be? Erin, you first. Only because you're sitting here. because I like to put you on the spot.
Ask yourself why you're doing it in the first place.
Excellent. Why are you doing it? Ask or answer?
Well, hopefully one would follow the other, but
Why am I doing this in the first place? I don't know. Let's go back to making music. Awesome. Avery?
Well, I guess I have two different responses, I guess. One is find out what is wrong with the song in the first place, right? Because you're not finishing it for a reason. So listen back to it away from your normal setup, right? Get a notepad, put it in your car, through your iPhone, in your bathroom or outside, whatever. Write down the specific sections, like, I don't like this.
That's right.
Now you have something to conquer with, right, to move forward with.
That's right. I love that. And I tell students all the time the two most important tools to all of music production are your opinions and a pen and paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can't keep it all up here.
Yes.
Maybe
And I
I'll
suppose
speak
the
up for
other thing
myself.
is just to listen to everything that we say or whatever, and then ignore everything and do whatever the hell you want. 'Cause this is music, right? No one's got all the answers.
Whoa, I just broke the chair. I was trying to be dramatic there. Didn't work out.
I think the other thing that people forget is to use their ears. And I know that seems kind of vague, but that's how I learned to mix. Yeah. It's like, how do you write a song? How do you set an EQ? It's like, I don't know. Why don't you listen? Like, use your ears. And that's a frustrating thing to hear, but I think people don't, they forget. They forget to listen.
Well, that's a good point, right? Because I think that a lot of people are looking for, like, what dB boost do I do on my snare?
Right.
On what frequency? Well, I don't know. What snare are you using, and do you like the way it sounds? Screw around with it. Put some stuff up, put some stuff down, see what sounds right. This is going to give you the answer. No one else is really going to give you the answer. People can help you get closer to what you'd like to get to, but this is your weapon,
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with that more, particularly the point about, I read somewhere that my snare drum needs to have a plus 2.5 dB boost with a 0.75 Q at 2.2K. Like, great. I hate that frequency, and it's
sounds like a preset. Yeah.
So your snare sounds like shit. Is there anything we can do about that? Oh, I don't know. Listen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to the point, you have to figure out the vocabulary of what you're hearing so you even understand whether or not something is or is not good. What does that even mean? And I think at the end of the day, good is whatever the hell you want it to be. All right. That's what makes art. Because for everyone that did something wrong, I can show you somebody else who broke the mold and reinvented what it could be. Awesome.
It's beautiful, man. It's just beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, we're gonna quote the Fountainhead in a minute. I can smell it.
Oh, it ran.
Last thoughts, anybody, before we wrap up? Avery?
Be yourself, make some awesome stuff.
Be yourself, make some awesome stuff.
Yep. Remember why you're doing it. Use your ears.
It's okay to fail. Better to fail.
It is okay to fail.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
It is okay to not write the hit every time.
That's right.
It's totally okay. We all do that.
That's right. It will probably take you 200 tracks before you get one that you're feeling super in love with. So get through 200. That's your number. Okay, if you want a number, that's your number. It's 200. Matt Donner says 200 tracks before you get a hit.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and if you hit it at 15, man, God bless you. Thank you both very much. Appreciate you being here. Producing Out Loud at Pyramind.com. We'll be signing off now. Cheers, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
If you're a music producer, subscribe to our channel and stay up to date on the latest Pyramind tutorial videos, track breakdowns, elite sessions, and more. Visit us at pyramind.com.